Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're stepping into the chaotic, hyper-leveraged, and incredibly high-stakes world of retail trading. We're going to take a really hard look at the mid-year 2026 data coming straight out of r/WallStreetBets. Now, if you follow the financial markets at all, you already know this community is famous for treating Wall Street like a literal casino. They combine deep, granular market analysis with internet meme culture and an absolutely staggering appetite for risk. So let's dive right into this data casino and see exactly what these retail traders are betting on, the absolute fortunes being made, and of course, the total destruction happening along the way.
58.55%. Seriously, let that single number sink in for a second. That is the staggering year-to-date average return for the community's top 10 stock picks midway through 2026. To put that into perspective for you, the broader market benchmark, the S&P 500, is sitting at a perfectly respectable 8.93% return for the year so far. Meanwhile, this community's top picks are absolutely obliterating it. We're not just talking about a slight edge here. They're outperforming the market by nearly 50 percentage points. So how are they actually doing it? And honestly, at what cost?
Well, to answer that, here's our roadmap for today's explainer. We'll kick things off with Welcome to the Casino, then look at massive gains and high rollers, and pivot over to loss porn and busted accounts. After that, we'll grade the WSB mid-year report card, and finally, unpack AI CAPEX and SpaceX bets. Basically, we're going to navigate the extreme wins, the devastating liquidations, and unpack the very surprising market sentiment driving all these massive numbers.
All right, Section 1. Welcome to the casino, the state of the subreddit. Right now, this community boasts roughly 4.3 million self-proclaimed degenerates. For them, tracking stocks is definitely not some passive, set-it-and-forget-it retirement strategy. It is a high-stakes spectator sport where they're the actual players on the field, with real, hard-earned money on the line. It's this wild environment where incredibly deep analytical research sits right next to wild, max-leverage speculation.
When you pull up their daily sentiment trackers, the bullish conviction is just wildly concentrated. ASML sits at a massive 73% bullish sentiment, and Microsoft is at 61%. But the broader market? Well, sentiment on the SPY is completely split down the middle at 49%. They aren't placing broad bets on the macro economy. Instead, they're hunting specific, high-growth sectors with surgical precision and, quite frankly, massive risk.
Moving on to Section 2, massive gains and high rollers, life-changing wins. To truly understand the psychology of this community, you really have to look at the euphoric highs they're all chasing. Their entire culture is built on the pursuit of trades that don't just, bump up your portfolio a few percent, but fundamentally alter the entire trajectory of your life. $2.1 million. That's a real, fully documented 2-year gain sitting proudly right on the subreddit's front page. We are talking about literal life-changing money being made and aggressively flaunted. Another user showcased turning $33,000 into $225,000 in just a single month. These scoreboards act as the ultimate advertisements for the casino, fueling the next wave of hopeful retail traders.
And that endless pursuit breeds some truly unfiltered, euphoric exits. One user posted, "Fuck everyone. 4.5 years to get to $1 million without options, and I'm done." That quote right there perfectly captures the ultimate fantasy of every trader in this community, hitting that magic number, declaring victory, and walking away from the tables for good.
But of course, we have to ask the critical question, right? What happens when these bets actually go wrong? Because in an environment specifically engineered around extreme risk and outsized rewards, that pendulum inevitably swings the other way with absolutely brutal force.
That brings us to Section 3, loss porn and busted accounts, the reality of the game. Interestingly, the subreddit actually has strict rules against glorifying losses. They make it crystal clear the goal is to extract capital from the market. However, they actively share these massive blowups, which they dub loss porn, as a brutal, highly transparent reality check. It serves as a really stark warning of the very real dangers involved when you're trading without hedges. Take, for example, a trader who recently posted their massive SpaceX loss, desperately asking the community, "SpaceX loss porn, suggestions for my last 40K. Think about that. This trader took a gut-wrenching hit betting on SpaceX and is now basically crowdsourcing how to salvage the final 40 grand of their account. The pure euphoria of the $2 million winners sits directly adjacent to this kind of absolute desperation.
And this is definitely not an isolated incident. The timeline is just completely littered with wiped-out accounts. One user threw their entire $315,000 Roth IRA, like their literal retirement fund, into SpaceX at $211 a share right before a massive drop. Another posts a staggering loss on Micron Technology, desperately asking, when MU going back to $100? And yet another simply titles their busted account screenshot, "Drank the Kool-Aid. We can come back?" It clearly and painfully illustrates the severe, immediate, and unforgiving downside of this high-wired trading style.
All right, let's step back from the individual emotional roller coaster for a minute and look at the aggregate data. Section 4, WSB Mid-Year Report Card, Retail versus Wall Street. The community recently did a highly anticipated Q2 2026 check-in. They wanted to see exactly how their top 10 crowdsourced stock picks from the end of 2025 were actually performing against institutional benchmarks.
The leaderboard absolutely tells the story of that 58% overall return we mentioned earlier. It's entirely driven by massive winners like the semiconductor giant Micron, ticker MU, which is up an astounding 290.28% for the year. NBIS is up over 228%, Rocket Lab is up 50.36%. Now, yes, there are losers dragging the average down, like Palantir, which sits at negative 29.05%. But the sheer upward velocity of the winners is exactly how this retail community is vastly outpacing traditional hedge funds, and that 8.93% return of the broader SP market.
Now, the crucial mechanic driving these outsized numbers is, of course, the YOLO trade. Taking highly concentrated, max leverage positions on a single ticker or options chain is exactly what generates those massive mid-year returns for the winners and, conversely, completely liquidates the accounts of the losers. It's an all-or-nothing momentum play that essentially defines their entire trading thesis. Which brings us to our final stop, Section 5, AI CAPEX and SpaceX bets, the big debates. If you step away from the flashy scoreboards for a bit, you'll actually find some incredibly deep philosophical market debates dominating the subreddit right now. They aren't just gambling blindly. They are actively debating the real macroeconomic forces and capital flows that are shaping the tech industry.
For instance, there's a highly upvoted, really critical discussion happening right now regarding artificial intelligence capital expenditures. One side of the argument, the AI CAPEX burn camp, points out that tech giants like Microsoft and Meta are incinerating billions of dollars on AI hardware. They argue these companies are turning historically capital-light, high-margin software businesses into massive cash bonfires with a totally unclear return on investment, building products that still lag behind OpenAI's GPT or Anthropic's Claude. The other side? They call it the semiconductor play. They argue that this panic spending is basically the biggest transfer of wealth in history, moving straight from the pockets of Microsoft shareholders into the hands of semiconductor companies like Micron and AMD.
It's basically being framed as a massive prisoner's dilemma for the whole tech sector. Copilot and Meta AI are lagging behind, and because these tech giants are absolutely terrified of missing out on building some sort of digital god, they're essentially forced to overspend. Nobody wants to be the one left behind, so they all spend wildly. It's an arms race that could cause severe multiple compression and actually hurt the profit margins of the Magnificent Seven collectively.
All of this leaves us with one incredibly provocative question. Are retail investors actually seeing the cracks in the AI boom way before Wall Street does? Because while traditional analysts are out there still cheering on the AI arms race, this chaotic, hyper-leveraged data casino might actually be spotting a major structural market shift regarding capital expenditure and profit margins well ahead of the curve. And that wraps up our explainer for today. Thank you so much for taking this tour through the mid-2026 data casino with us. It is absolutely a wild world of million-dollar wins and devastating liquidations. But as we've seen, beneath the surface, there is some serious, contrarian market analysis actually taking place. Keep looking at the data, keep questioning those dominant market narratives, and we will catch you next time.